Hello and welcome to episode 7 of My Mental Cloud, a podcast where I talk about anything and everything just to get things off of my head and my chest. Today's topic is journaling. Why do people do it? Is it really good? And I have to say, I do it. So, why do I do it? There's a lot of reasons why journaling in general has been a topic of discussion for a lot of people. And it's really just about getting things off your head, kind of like this podcast, right? Getting things off your mind. A lot of people use it for that, just to write down their thoughts so that way they don't think about it. A lot of people sleep better at night. I can tell you right now, when I do it, I do sleep better. I have the tendency of not doing it every day because I don't think that I, when doing it every day, I've realized that I write down the same thing over and over again, right? Because even though I wrote it down, it's not necessarily off in my head. So, for instance, I use a journal to also write down, like, I'm a filmmaker, as we can tell from all these other podcasts, and I actually will use my journal to write down ideas as well as write down what's in my head, how I'm feeling. And I think that it's a healthy thing, right? And I think that pencil and paper is very important too. A lot of people say, well, you can write on your iPad, you can do this, you can do that. But I think when you use pencil or pen and paper, it's a physical thing that you carry around and you can pretty much take anywhere with you. One of the things that I really liked and one of the reasons why I started doing journaling, especially on a pen and paper, is because I could take it anywhere, even in classified areas, right? As long as I'm not writing down classified information, I can write down whatever I want to write down. So I'll be sitting there in a classified area and something hits my head, right? Instead of me going like, oh, because a lot of people go to their phones and write it down, I just write it down on a piece of paper and pencil, right? And it's inside my book. I can go back to it later. One of the things that I will say, if you're using journaling as a tool to understand and learn and use it as therapy, which it is used as therapy a lot. I think that therapy is very important. I think that everybody should have some type of release when it comes to stress and stuff like that and stuff on their mind instead of holding it all in their head. Again, another reason why I'm doing this podcast is to really get things off your head and understand. It's like it can de-stress you out. You can stop thinking about it for a while, this, that, and the other. And then on top of that, one of the greatest things that I think a lot of people don't do and enough of is going back to those days, right? There'll be times where I go back to a journal that I started back in 2019 or 2020. And I'll look at it and be like, okay, this is the mindset that I was in, and I can actually see the growth in how I became the person that I am today, right? Um, one of the things that you also start to realize not only what mindset you're in and how you've grown, but the thing is though you also realize what was bothering you at the time. You can learn from that, right? What have I done to change this, or has this changed? And this, that, and the other. For example, when I really first started journaling, I was in the Middle East, and when you're in the Middle East, you go through a lot of different mental states, right? When you first leave, you're excited because it's like, okay, it's new money, we're doing something that's important. You start thinking about the things that you're doing, right? You're like, okay, cool, every paycheck's gonna be super nice. I can put so much money away. Normally, when you deploy, unless you already make a lot of money, normally when you deploy, especially in my situation, right? My situation, like I said, I don't make a lot of money, but I have a great lifestyle, which to me counts as currency. So even though I don't make a lot of physical currency money, I still get time off, a lot of time off. I still get a lot of freedom when it comes to my job. So I really appreciate my job and I really like my job. Um, it's the location that I have a problem with, but we're not talking about that. But you start out that first phase like, yeah, everything's great, blah blah blah. We're gonna make a lot of money, but you have to leave your family. Or if you're not leaving your family, you're single, right? Then you're like, okay, cool, I'm there. But then there comes another phase when you start missing out, right? And when you start missing out, like after you've been gone for about a month or two, you start realizing like, okay, well, this is starting to get old, right? And then by the time you are done with your 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 15 months, whatever your deployment is, you've really gone through a lot of mental stuff. Even if your deployment wasn't bad and you weren't shot at or anything like that, even if you were doing like a support job, your life at home is completely different than your life when you're deployed, especially if you're in the Guard or Reserves, right? Because when you're in the Guard or Reserves, you have a civilian job. and you have a life, an actual life outside of the military. And so you're worried about how things have changed and this, that, and the other. And when you get back, you gotta fit back in, and things, it becomes very stressful. So with journaling, you're able to get all that stuff off your head. Now, I have found times where, like for instance, I would say my last deployment, I missed Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, my anniversary, Valentine's Day. I missed a lot. I went from October 2020 to May 2021. And I missed a lot. I missed out on a lot of things. One that hit me the most, and I didn't realize it until I read back like a few weeks ago. I actually read it again. And I actually had a conversation with my wife about this. I missed Christmas. I was there on FaceTime. I was able to see everybody do everything, this and the other, but it was very overwhelming and upsetting that I couldn't physically be there with my kids. And then on top of that, you're on a phone, so in a loud situation, unless you're connected to a speaker or in somebody's head, nobody can hear you. So I'm propped up against the wall, and I'm watching my kids, and I want to talk to them. But after so long, everybody either forgets that I'm there, or, and it's not even so long, I should say it was a short time. It was probably like 2 minutes. And they forget that I'm there, or they're talking so loud and they're so excited that if I try to say something to anybody, my kids or anything like that, I don't even get to see them. It was almost to the point where I should have just not called, right? Or maybe waited till after everybody was done with the whole morning Christmas, stuff like that. Christmas, and the thing is though, prior to me having kids, these little events didn't bother me. Missing Christmas didn't bother me, missing Thanksgiving, it was just another day. But when you have kids, it's a completely different situation. And for me, this deployment that we're talking about was the first time I deployed with kids, right? I was married for the deployment prior to that. But that wasn't any different than the deployment prior to that when I was dating my current wife, right? So I was dating my wife, and so she had already known how it felt for me to be gone, and I had already known how it felt to be gone away from her for that long. So for me, the one after I got married was not a difficult deployment. To be honest with you, it was kind of short, in my opinion. It felt short because it was a normal thing. This last deployment, because I had 2 kids, it felt like it's a very long time. And so there was a lot of different mixed emotions and feelings. I'm at a different rank. I have different responsibilities. I'm dealing with the kids at home. I'm dealing with not being able to see them whenever I want to. I'm dealing with a bunch of other things, and I have all these other responsibilities, all these other things that's going on in my head. And and at the same time, I'm worried about getting bombed, right? So all this stuff is going down in my head, and it's like, it was easy to forget things. It was easy to forget to do things, stuff like that. It's like, oh crap, I gotta get this done. But what I noticed is when I started writing everything down, just getting out of my head, right? Going to the gym after, waking up in the morning, journaling, going to the gym, going to get food, going to work, coming back home, talking to the kids, going to the gym again, and then going to bed, right? Getting that stuff off of my head in the morning allowed me to go to sleep. It allowed me to sleep better. It allowed me to not worry about things. It allowed me to not get in my way. I believe that journaling is a great tool, and I think that's one of the reasons why therapists use it, is because if you can write down your thoughts and you can read them later, if you can write down your feelings and you can read them later, you know exactly you can actually see what you're thinking. That's no longer in your head. It potentially can be out of your head and you don't have to think about it anymore, because there's a point where, so one of the things that, and I hate to bring this up, going from journaling to something else, but it's the theory behind it. So Eminem is a rapper. arguably one of the greatest rappers to ever do the game, right? One of the greatest rappers to ever rap is Eminem, right? White guy, a lot of people don't like him, blah blah. But then you have the historical, what everybody calls cool, is Lil Wayne and Jay-Z goes into a studio and they don't even write. They basically come off the dome and work, blah 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 blah. Eminem is such a not a steward, but he's a student of the game that he was doing pretty much everything. He was writing, producing, creating music, doing all that stuff, right? On top of rapping at a high level. And what he finds interesting is that when he writes, because he doesn't need anything to freestyle, right? That's where he started doing was freestyling. But he's constantly thinking about ways to rhyme things and to bend words and to make things work and how do you write the story, blah, blah, blah. And then if he doesn't write it down, he'll go back to it like, oh, what was I thinking? Oh, what was going on during this point when I said this or when I rhymed this? What was going on in my head? What was the rhyme to that? Blah, blah, blah. So he found out that pencil and paper, the physical idea of pencil and paper is I can write it down and I can get back to it later. So that's another thing, one other reason why I like pencil and paper, right? And don't get me wrong, there'll be times where I wake up in the middle of the night and I don't want to wake up my wife, so I'll just sit there and grab my phone and text myself, and then I'll write it down later. What I've been recently doing is using the app Milanote to write down all my ideas. But when I can't use Milanote, it's what I've been doing with Milanote is actually been writing stuff down on paper and then transcribing it over to Milanote later, because the idea, like I said, to be able to pull out a piece of paper anywhere, whether it's a classified area, whether it's in a place like a meeting, because I'm not going to pull my phone out in a meeting, that's disrespectful. I could write paper. If I'm writing something down, most people think that I'm writing notes of what's going on. You don't know how many times I've been in a meeting and I pull out my journal or I'll call it a journal, and I'm writing down an idea that just popped in my head based off of what somebody said, right? And the idea might be towards a film. Has nothing to do with that idea. But if I have a piece of paper out and I'm a pencil and I'm writing it down, right? They think, oh, he's taking notes. He's doing this. Whereas if I pull my phone out and I'm texting myself, they'll be like, oh, he's texting, he's not even paying attention. I don't know what it is about the pencil and paper versus the phone that people think we're not paying attention. So that, and I think because we have access to social media and all this type of stuff, via technology, when you take and go back to what people call caveman style of pencil and paper, it's more of a respectful thing to them. But off of the rapper thing, being able to just access your thoughts and stuff from whenever you felt like it, right? For instance, with a journal, a physical journal, right? You put it away, like you might put it away and never see it for 15 years. With an electronic journal on your phone, it could get erased, right? If I found a journal from 2 years ago in my shed when I was doing my, when I was creating my trailer, my gear trailer, when I was doing some movement, I grabbed my lighting gear from my photography, my strobes, and I did not remember half the feelings that I had when we went from the Middle East over to South Carolina. And there was a lot of difference in South Carolina, because with the Middle East, even though we are back in the States, South Carolina is not catered to the Middle East, right? So with the location that we were in, it was catered to the idea of the lifestyle of being deployed. So we were technically still deployed working another mission in South Carolina. But the thing is, though, South Carolina is in the United States. South Carolina is still, it's a 9 to, like the base itself was a 9 to 5. Everything was closed. Your medical was closed. Your commissaries were closed. There was different things like that. And it wasn't catered towards a 24-hour operation that had been there. Back in the Middle East, which was more convenient, is everything was catered to 24 hours, besides, like, obviously finance and the post office. But you can go to the store at any given moment. It's 24 hours open. You can go to get a haircut up till like 10 p.m. You can go get food at any given moment. Whereas, like I said, the feelings were super different. It was different. It wasn't even though I was at home, even though I was in the States, it felt weird. And it felt like it was more difficult, and the time took forever, and things changed, and it was just a weird feeling for me because it was like I'm literally 2 hour flight away from my family, but I can't see them, right? It was more stressful that way, especially when you find out your daughter has to go to the hospital for some reason. It just becomes one of those things where it's just like I'm literally 2 hour flight away. I could go there if I can do that. Like on my day off, if I could fly on my day off, I'd fly home and then fly back. I'd fly home the day, like right after I got off work, and then fly back right before I have to go to work. But I think journaling is the number one thing that a lot of people, if they did it, life would be different, right? We talk about the whole thing, and not even if it's just about your mental state, right? Your mentality, your mental state, how you think. One thing that I notice is a lot of successful people actually journal too. And I think the reason why they journal is because it gets stuff off their mind, right? So that way they can focus on their business aspects. I want to start journaling again. I want to start really getting into journaling again. I still journal. I just started journaling again, but it's off and on. But I need to be more consistent because I feel like if I can create a routine to where I can journal, get things off of my head that doesn't pertain to moving forward towards my goals and towards my dreams. Even if I write down an idea that might be stupid, but then, it's not as stupid like later on in life. Like it might be stupid for the moment that I'm in right now, but then later on in life, it might, that'll work. Just to get it off my head, to get myself into a routine of what's on my head, get it off so that way I don't have to think about it all day. You see what I'm saying? That being said, I think that this is the end of the podcast for this episode. I want to say thank you for if you're still here listening to the podcast, and 2, think about journaling. I think that it's a way of release. I think it's a stress reliever. I think it's also a way to get your head cleared so that way you can be focused on what you want to be focused on. But yeah, so thank you.